So let's start. And I was talking about the factors instrumental to success by applying agile. Yeah. So we were talking about the philosophy, and we talked about that the customers will should be willing to accept less than 100% solution. What it means is, if the customers say that time is more important than the features and the requirements, then they should be able to prioritize their requirement. And should we come to a point that time is not enough, then they should be willing to accept the less than 100% solution. Now that is a very important aspect of agile, because it's very difficult for the customers, given the attitude people have and the way they have been doing projects traditionally, for them to kind of accept such things that I haven't got everything and I had asked for. But they should look at the point that they have received it on time. Apart from that, it is also very important that the solution team is able to make decisions on their own. So when we start the time box, we should be able to offer some kind of accountability and decision making power to the solution development team. The reason here is, so for example, you have the requirements, and if the requirements have been prioritized in the order like must have, should have, could have, then for them to access the visionary should be only when they have a problem with a must have. But if they have any queries, suggestions, or dropping of one or more of the should or could have requirements, then business ambassador should be able to do this. So access to a business ambassador throughout the time box is really important for the success of time box as well as the project. This is due to the fact that visionaries are usually very senior people. They own the requirement and they provide the vision, but they should be only required for must haves, and they should delegate or appoint some representative who is constantly able to work with teams, review their work, solve their problem, do acceptance testing or system testing, or work with them in deciding priorities of the time box. And that person is called as a business ambassador. Small projects, small companies, internal projects, the ambassador and visionary role might be played by the same person. Yeah, but when you have large teams, distributed teams, different customer, maybe we should have an ambassador appointed who should be able to guide the team. Apart from that, incremental delivery is another aspect that needs to be understood by people. Like, if you have some product to be sold online, and if you are developing kind of a e-commerce marketplace, then rather than looking at finishing all things, all features in 6 months, the focus will be, can I deliver incrementally? Can I make 3 releases, all important must functionality in the first one, then gradually build upon that using some enhancements? This will enable companies, customers to receive an early ROI. Just think about the way in standard projects people do. Like, you do all requirements first, so you get hundreds of requirement, then you do all the design first, then you start development. When you start development, it is possible that you again get some requirements which go through design again, then we go to UAT, we get defects, and we again start with design, development, and testing. This takes a very long time. What instead we want to do is, we want to divide the entire project into some increments or releases, and then find out a little bit of each feature, design it, develop it, and put it to life so people can use it. That way, we can reduce the time to market and start getting benefits early in the system. Now, that is early return on investment benefit of agile projects. People should be able to adopt all these philosophies if they want to successfully use agile. The other factors that contribute to success are the access to business roles. Solution development team, they work on analysis, design, development, and testing, but the decisions on requirements and functionality will be taken by business roles. Are the business roles available to the team? Like I mentioned, maybe this is not a problem you have faced because you work at customer side, but when you have uh, different sides or different departments, then generally the problem that companies face or developers face is, if they send a query, it takes a little longer to get a resolution on query. Apart from that, complex queries or some kind of functionality related discussions, they become often impossible or kind of challenging due to the availability of people. Because business thinks once they have given the requirements document, they will then return at UAT time to see how it has been developed. This needs to change. Business will have to be involved as much as solution development team. Apart from that, the stability of team is also very important. The reason is, if you consistently or constantly swap in and out resources, then the knowledge will not be retained. And also the team building, apart from that, team performing as a unit will become challenging due to consistent or constant changes in the team structure. It is recommended that teams are small, that is 7 plus minus 2. So you don't have less than 5 people on the team, and you don't have more than 9 people on the team. If you have less than 5 people, then some of these skills or competencies will not be available in the team, which will make you depend on external resources. For example, if you want to have some kind of testing to be done, a lot of companies like Capgemini, they practice center of excellence. What it means is, you have a development team and you have a testing team, and if testers have to do the testing, they will be allocated by center of excellence. Now these testers may have their own priorities, may have their own projects, so when they become available, they will do the work for you, which means it will delay the project or it might hamper your momentum. It is required that we create one team, generally called as a matrix teams in project management, and the matrix team should have most required competencies and skills within. If you have more than 9 people on the project, then it also sorry, in the team, then it also can increase the number of coordination channels or communication channels. So there will be a lot of coordination and communication required. Apart from that, too many hands. So it is really good to have small teams and a small span of control. When the projects are done in a customer supplier relationship, the contract should also complement. For example, if you have fixed price projects, and if you are trying to use agile in there, the problem that can happen is, like, if you receive a change request, it goes to the change control board who does all the impact analysis. So approval of a change normally takes a lot of time, and if you are running a time box, and if few days just goes in approving the changes, then it might basically make you drop many features or delay your project. So a lot of things will have to be considered for getting ready to adopt agile, and unless they are paid attention to, it is very difficult to kind of use all the things that they mention. So what the book does is, and you will find it towards the end of your book, there is an appendix called as project approach questionnaire. It offers you about 21 questions, and what is suggested is, in the beginning, that is when you are in the feasibility phase, it is suggested that before you adopt agile, you should go through these questions and see how much you agree with the environment or conditions to adopt agile. So the questions are like, does the team understand the objectives behind using agile? Does the people have empowerment to make decisions? Do you have a business ambassador who will be involved with the development team? Do you have a visionary? Do you have the understanding of project requirements and their priorities? And then what is suggested is, you should go through this kind of questionnaire with the stakeholders. So it would be something like this: when the project moves into feasibility phase, and if you have the project manager identified, project manager determines the key stakeholders, and we all get into one room, and then we go through these 21 questions. And how you do it, instead of people answering them in a kind of a conversation or in a kind of open forum, they go through an anonymous kind of a questionnaire. So they all do their own questions, and then we put it up, and then we just find out how many people agree, disagree, strongly agree. And then you see what is the difference between two votes. For example, you said, I fully agree that business ambassador has been allocated to the project, whereas I say I disagree. Now you have a conflict, so you can just bring out such conflicts and find out, are we on the same page before we begin the project. Whichever place we have disagreements, for example, I disagree that I know the business objectives of this project, or if I say I can't see the visibility of how this project will be funded, that means you have identified one of the challenge or risk on the project, and all such risks should be logged in your risk register, and we should identify how are we going to deal with these challenges. Like, if I don't have a business ambassador on my project, and if I have to deal with visionary, then I should have an agreement in place that says, but how are you going to work with us when we need you during time box? Because you are a busy person, you are a senior person, you travel a lot. So if I need a decision, how do we make that decision? Who makes that decision? What if it kind of delays our work and we kind of lose our momentum? So you find such risk, find their impact, and find a solution for them. It's a very good questionnaire to use when you start using agile on your project. The way it is used, you do first during investigation, and when you go into foundations, you know the challenges that we might face, and then you find out what we can do about them, how do we deal with them, and have an agreement in place with business, technical, and management people. And then you keep going back to your risks throughout. This is a very key tool that they have offered in the book. Yeah. And in the foundation exam, they ask you question like, in which process or phase you will use project approach questionnaire, or it, like, either feasibility or foundations. And the other one is, which tool or technique helps you in identifying risks or challenges in your project in adopting agile. So project approach questionnaire is one that helps you in identifying what problems we can face if we have to use agile in this environment or in this company or with this customer. Like, some customers might not be aware of how agile works, in which case they might be expecting 100% solution. Now that itself is a risk, because we said I will deliver on time, but I might not deliver everything. Now, is this a risk? Is this understood by your stakeholders? Needs to be clarified. So you ask a question to your stakeholders: are you okay that when I finish on time, you might not get everything? If they say no, I want everything, then you have a problem to begin with. Yeah. uh, it's a very good questionnaire. I suggest you kind of just have a look at that, and I'll send you a case study and you fill the case study using this questionnaire. What do you think about it? Apart from that, some preparation steps are required. For example, it is good to have the team working together in the same location, like you do. You have the business, customers, development team, everybody in on the same floor in the same building, so you can access them as and when required. How this helps? Because then you do more human interactions or people interactions over sending emails and chats or phones, because those are not very good tools for communication. And but now, if you see, most companies have done their development either outsourced or offshore to some other vendor or supplier, and they might not even sit in the same building. So you will need to find lots of different ways of doing collaboration. Like, we have had these video conferencing tools. We have also had this kind of chats and lots of other ways of interacting with people. We also had lots of kind of timing changes, like you start working at the UK time or you start working at the Australian time. You have these video chats, video camera, so that you can consistently talk to people. So lots of companies in India, they have started practicing this video conferencing, and what they also do is they create a similar kind of an environment for both sides. Like, you have same ambience, same timings to start, and you can always see on a big monitor the other team. And if you just want to kind of chat with them, just come to the in front of the camera and talk, and people can come and kind of discuss things as if they are like sitting together. Yeah. So you will need to find such things. Co-location is recommended, But if it is not possible, you will need to find ways of getting teams together. It is also required that larger teams are divided into smaller teams. So now, like team size is 7 plus minus 2. But what if you have 20, 30 people on the team? Then you divide them into more number of teams, making sure that each team does not go beyond 9, so that you have better coordination and communication. Apart from that, there is another problem that might come. For example, a lot of companies where you have micromanagers means they usually are not able to delegate tasks or accountabilities, and they want to see every task and how it is being done and monitor everything about it. Many times managers also think that if they give a lot of empowerment, then there won't be their, I mean, people won't have their need. Apart from that, there are also ways where people are new, juniors, or inexperienced. So in such cases, how do you do the empowerment? Because if you give accountabilities and people are not able to take it, or may not be able to make justice, then you want to find out how you deal with such situations. So in short, or in summary, you will need to look at the way your company works, the culture, the people, the environment, infrastructure, and see how are you going to adopt agile by looking at these various factors, because they influence a lot on how your project is being done. There is also good guidance on testing. Now, as we said, never compromise on quality is one of the principle in agile. Now, never compromise on quality, the principle has been introduced because we have another one that says deliver on time. So we need to balance. We don't want people to deliver on time, but it doesn't work. So how do you do testing? Now, there are many ways of doing testing. Like there is test driven development. For example, the unit test cases. So you write unit test cases first for the functionality that doesn't exist, and then you make your code run through it. So if your code passes those condition, that means your code fulfills that particular test condition. There are risk based testing, so you identify risks on your software where it can go wrong. For example, integration. Now, if my product needs to interface with some other products, before you do the entire development, you might want to do the integration testing. Then prioritized testing is about applying Moscow rules. For example, I might have written 200 test cases, but if I don't have time to test all of them, which functionality I must test? Like testing people, they usually have segregated areas like popular functionality, or most used functionality, or never used functionality, or important functionality, or security. So you can prioritize all your test cases, and then you execute your test cases such that if you run out of time, the important ones are at least taken care of. You might have heard about regression test pack. Like there might be lots of functionality going live, but business will keep some regression pack to basically safeguard that the overall functionality works. You have independent testing as well. A lot of people call it in monkey testing, wherein you get somebody who has never been involved in the development or has not used the functionality, and you get the person to do a testing to find out if there is anything wrong, or is there anything not understood. You have fail fast. Fail fast is like kind of detecting early defects on your system, so that you can make changes to your design and integration. You have collaborative testing, where you can do system testing, you can get stakeholders to also do the functionality testing. You have repeatable testing, so that you have the errors that were identified earlier, so that the system is consistent. And then end to end testing, like user acceptance testing. It starts from, for example, I come to the site, then I register as a user, then I log in, then I run searches till I order a product and pay for it. So various different type of testings will need to be investigated to see which one works better for a particular project, at what time it is done, who will do it, how it will help. You got to get prepared for this, because you want to make sure that the product we deliver works. It might not be the perfect product, but it does what the customer wants. Similarly, configuration management also needs to be managed. Now, configuration management is important whether the project is small, large, internal, or external. Configuration management means making sure that the entire solution is integrated and can be tracked, the traceability of each product that we have created. Like if five people work on the team, few people are doing support of on the production, few people are doing new release development. How do we make sure that people, when they branch out their code, they are able to merge it, trace it, and make sure it's a coherent solution? Version controlling of your software, documentation, test cases is very important. And what we need to do is we need to find out how are we going to make sure that we are good at doing controlling of your products, like versioning and all that. You have good softwares for that, like SharePoint. We used SharePoint to do this. We also had the clear case software to do this. We also, I mean, I've also used something like SVN. Have you used any such software? I mean, are you using any software for configuration management and version controlling? Hello, Dharmi? Hello. Hello. So Dharmi, have you used any configuration management softwares?
Yes, we have certain SAP configuration management softwares that I have used. Yes.
Okay, and
And earlier slide also, I wanted to ask you a question. I
ISF.
put you onto that,
Yeah, yeah,
onto
ISF.
the chat. Yeah. What is
ISF.
ISF?
Yeah, factors instrumental to success. Yeah, so ISF exactly doesn't said like that instrumental like, but you can say factors instrumental to successfully adopting agile. Yeah, so which factors are
Okay.
important? So which factors are important? Now, if you see the real world, what happens is, for example, you work for a company like Accenture. Now what happens there, you might have many project teams. So let's say I am working on a project for an insurance company in UK. What generally happens is, for all projects that are undergoing, there are central teams. These central teams, they do testing, they do configuration management, they do project management, PMOs, quality assurance, and so on. Now, because these central teams have responsibilities across the organization, they look at their own priorities and resourcing. Now that hampers the project movement, you know. So if I get configuration management to be done by some other teams, and if someone joins in my team and I want him to get the user access and access files and do all this, then I need to kind of send a request to them, then it is raised as a ticket, then they basically look at the urgency and then they do it. That way it just impacts me a lot. Apart from that, these test environments, development environments, they are also maintained by some other groups. So we basically become quite dependent on other groups to do our work. Now, our priority might not be their priority. Everyone works within their department's priority. Now, such things usually create roadblocks to project development work. Apart from that, testings also, we have a standard way of doing testing. For example, in normal case, if you see, first, we do analysis. While doing analysis, we create requirements document. A requirement document cannot be tested, so we do review. Now, reviews are, I mean, after the review, we get it signed off. Then we start on working on design. Again, design cannot be tested, so we do review to see whether the design can meet requirements. So it's all on document. It's all about imagining, right? Then we do development. When development is completed, during development, we do unit testing, but we don't do full testing. So we do integration testing after that. That is where a lot of time problem comes. Like if two teams were doing their development in an isolated manner, like I have had this problem. I was working with an insurance company in UK, and we were doing a software that will kind of, you know, integrate with a handheld device. So this insurance company, their sales people, staff, and marketing people, on every weekend and bank holidays, around UK at city centers, they will basically enroll people, new customers, and then they send some information. So they used to fill forms and send it to the head office. Head office will scan and enter the data. It used to take 2 to 3 weeks to see the data in the system. Now they wanted to speed this up. So the solution was, instead of filling forms, give them some handheld devices where they can enter the information, swap credit cards, do payments, and then real time put the data in the systems so that we can serve the customer. My team was supposed to make one unit which is in the CRM, that is the call center and agents and all. Some other company, Logica CMG, was supposed to do the handheld device and the software required for the handheld device. And there was another team that was working on the ERP system that was doing all finances. Until integration, we all worked in our own environment. We did our development, we did our testing. So individually, everybody's product was working very well. It was then couple of months later when we integrated everything, we had a lot of problem. So the integration that was supposed to take 2 weeks actually cost us 2 months because we had a lot of rework. And then what happened was, we also had after that system testing. So some functionality was not identified, and then because it was all reviewed only, it was not tested. So when that was tested, the internal team said this functionality is not properly working or we have missed on certain functionality, so we got change requests again. Finally, 2 months, another 2 months later, we did UAT, and then user acceptance testing. We had many other problems. So actually, the customer, after giving the requirements, saw how things are working after a couple of months, and then we had lots of problem in the system. Now this is a proven problem. So what we want to do in our environment now is, we need to find out, can do we see anywhere the system failing, and then prioritize so that we identify risk and we do some risk based testing. Like with the integration, do you think integration might fail because it is being developed in different teams? So let's find out what's important in integration, try to test it before we go into deep, we do deep dive in the development. Apart from that, security testing, end to end testing, independent testing, all of these things will have to be adopted. So we can't just have that system testing and UAT testing approach in Agile. We need to bring some other kind of new ways of doing testing and ensuring the product is fit for purpose. Same goes for configuration management, same goes for the way we interact with business, same goes for the way we engage the business. These are all factors that will basically help us kind of adopt Agile and remove some of the common problems that happens in companies. Apart from that, we also need to make sure that the technical coordinator role, if possible, owns the configuration management, so that he can make quick decisions, and kind of whenever we have some kind of configuration related activities, we can get it inside the team. But generally, since this is done in center of excellence, many time it might be external people who will be doing it. In such cases, we need to organize how this will be administered and supported. So these changes will have to be brought up in our development environment. Now that is how we need to bring the environment so that we can start using Agile. Let me just introduce once again, summarize once again. We want to become agile. Agile means we want to move fast. To move fast, we need some enablers. For example, if I have a question related to a business requirement, who should I ask, and will that person be available to me? So we got the ambassador who should be with me. If I have a problem to decide between two requirements, which one I should do and which one I should drop because I don't have time, once again, I need access to the business. So, is the business willing to spend time with me throughout? So, I need to have that business ambassador. Many times problem comes is, too many people needs to be communicated and coordinated, and task assigned or reported and so on. Now that way we kind of either look on few, or somebody gets ignored, or we are not able to manage. So you have more than 9 people, divide the teams into more number of teams so that you can manage small units better. So you got to have that small teams culture. You got to involve business, you got to engage them throughout. You got to make sure most core competencies are within. Now, what are the other roadblocks? The other roadblocks are, for example, configuration management. Now, how do you do configuration management? If somebody else like IT team or some central team is looking after it, then if you become dependent on them, how are you going to make sure that they are there when you basically need them? So how do you deal with changes in your system? You also need to change the attitude towards testing, because we now know that, well, okay, the, the defects are identified pretty late in the system. That basically again triggers the entire process, start from analysis, design, development, and testing. So we know that if a defect is leaked through analysis, then we have a full rework cycle. How do we reduce such things? By doing lots of different types of testing, like early testing, risk based testing, security testing, collaborative testing, and integration testing, and independent testing, and such things. So you have to introduce you some new ways or approaches in the way you look at testing. Finally, because teams are small, because we have less time, because we have to become a little more kind of a close knit, or you can say kind of one team culture that we need to build. There is a lot of efforts to build team and get them to work as a unit. If people are constantly swapped in and out, then you have to do this all over again, which is actually very challenging, because we can't afford to kind of lose productivity. So these are some of the things that enables a good environment to be agile. Now, how do you find the common risk? We have project approach questionnaire, which helps you kind of go through a 21 set questions to quickly figure out, is there any challenge that is expected, so that you can plan how we can deal with it. Now that is basically enabler, you can say. Yeah. Is there any question you have?
We
Okay.
can start.
Yeah. So let's look at the agile project management topic. The style used in agile project management is different than the way traditional projects are run. Generally, in traditional projects or in waterfall style, project manager is doing a lot of detailing of plans, doing effort estimation, scheduling, and plans for the next couple of months and for each member of the team. Apart from that, project manager also delegate tasks to team and then follows up, like how much time spent, and keeps everyone informed. So he is the one who is basically using a command style control, wherein delegate tasks to team and find out how they are working. However, in agile project management, project manager is not delegating tasks to team. He's not going to the level where the project manager is kind of dividing deliverables into tasks and who does what. We want a little more kind of delegative kind of delegation style of management, where we want teams to be empowered to identify their activities and own up to the activities. Project manager should assign deliverables and team should identify activities and who does it. Like if I've got payment solution, then the project manager's job is to make sure we have resources to do this, resources understands the functionality, and that they are available to work on the project. They also have all the facilities and infrastructures that are required. But dividing that deliverable into tasks and who does what and tracking and estimating should be better left to the team. So team should be empowered to do this, and project manager's job would be more like a leader and facilitator or enabler, you can say. There is something called a servant leadership, wherein, like the manager's job is to kind of remove the roadblocks and provide resources to the team. Job of project manager is to kind of keep stakeholders informed and also lead the team, focus on solutions rather than how the solutions are built. Make sure team cooperate, make sure stakeholders are engaged throughout the project, make sure teams take initiative, and make sure ways of improvement, as compared to the waterfall style where you give direction, you basically look into the low level activities and information. You make sure processes are complied with, and then you keep tracking and all. We want to move from there. We want the teams to own up their responsibilities. But it is a little difficult if you have junior and inexperienced people. In that case, you will need to do a little bit tweaking to the approach, because then they won't know what tasks I have to do and in which order. In such cases, the team lead or project manager will have to direct the team and lead and motivate them. The agile PM's job is to make sure that there is emphasis on communication, that the teams basically escalate interruptions, find out the interruptions and roadblocks, work with sponsors and visionary to resolve them, make sure team meet on a daily basis for a daily stand-up meeting of 15 minutes to identify what's working, and then compile the feedback and provide that to the stakeholders about where the project is today and the health. Apart from that, project manager can also be a good leader to build teams and get most out of the teams, like motivation, leadership, conflict resolution, team building, providing resources. You might see a question in practitioner about the various responsibilities of a project manager, and some of these include motivation, leadership, and providing resources uh, to the project. Yeah, like bringing in best resources from outside by negotiating with stakeholders. Project manager does not plan the time boxes. Project manager finds out how many time boxes are required and the priorities with the visionary. If I'm a project manager, I will identify how many time boxes and the length of each time box, like 6 time boxes of 1 month each. And I will also park what is expected to be done in each time box. Thereafter, I will leave it to the team to determine who does what inside the time box. They meet up every day. I need to just make sure they meet up. I need to probably go and check once in a week to see how what's the status, and then I keep inform my stakeholders. So at usually we want to transition from command style to people style, or kind of uh, people style or a leader type of a role, wherein you help people achieve the project objectives rather than you directing them. The project manager also basically need to delegate team leader the day-to-day decision making power, and ensure that the team is able to deliver must have in each time box. If the time box is not run according to the expectation, and if you think you can't finish everything, then you can drop should have or could have. The team includes solution development team members, that includes business ambassador, and the business ambassador can provide guidance and advice on requirements prioritization on behalf of visionary. So the project manager is only involved if a must have is impacted, and the project manager then involves the senior stakeholders like visionary and sponsor. Co-located team is ideal, but like I mentioned, it is not every time possible to get the team to sit together, especially when customer supplier relationship is involved. Apart from that, the project manager's job is to protect team from unnecessary external impacts. For example, if the cross-functional teams are involved, and if they are borrowed from different departments, then their priorities might in fact impact the availability of your team members. So you got to protect them from getting distracted. You also have to make sure that the stakeholders are kept in loop, and that they receive project progress information. Finally, the project manager can also be team leader when you have small teams, internal projects, and kind of project manager is also like cross functional, like works a technical type of role as well. So you have project manager and team leader role combined and given to the same person. Uh, Now, I just need to understand your team structure. I mean, do you have a project manager, a team leader, type of a role, or is the same person does both job?
No, we have the project manager who is there, and very rarely, if the project manager is busy with two or three projects at a time, then we have a team leader.
Okay,
But otherwise, both the roles are played by the project manager.
okay. Now, another question is, does he make a detailed plan and tell each member what they are supposed to do, when, and how much efforts are allocated, or the project manager
No,
involves?
no. As long as we were present during the kickoff, we know what the roles and responsibilities are. We just need to deliver them on time.
Hmm.
And if there are certain issues that we might not be able to deliver, then we have to let him know.
Okay,
So he's aware of it that it might not be delivered during this phase or something like that, and the reasons.
okay.
That's it. Otherwise, you can do whatever you want.
Exactly. Now, this is what exactly Agile is recommending. Like, the team should own up the responsibility and make decision rather than the project manager making. But which decision they should not take? Anything that impacts the must have, because time is
Yeah,
nobody's excuse. Because we are not going to coming arriving late. The date is fixed. Only thing is, by then what needs to be completed. As long as you deliver everything that was marked must have, we are fine. But uh, should have, could have, the teams can make the decision. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay. Just 1 second. Yeah.
yeah.
I'll just bring my charger actually. So what we will be discussing now is we will be talking about the agile project management processes and products. If you recall, we talked about the agile framework, which is based on a philosophy that not everything will be delivered first time, and we need to make the product perfect over time. Now, to support the philosophy, we have few things that makes up the structure, which is principles. That's the attitude that we must take to become agile and bring agility in the way we deliver things. And then we have these processes that defines the work that needs to be done at different times by different people. And we also have products. Product means the deliverables, the artifacts. Some of these are technical products and the others are business products. We have people who follow processes to create the products. So we have principles, processes, products, people, and practices. We are now going to talk about two things together, which is process and products. Process is also called as phases, and products, you can call them deliverables or artifacts. So we have 7 phases in an agile project. Some of them are sequential, or you can call them they happen one after another, like the way we do waterfall projects. Whereas some are iterative. So where we have to make management decisions about the project progress, like we need to move to the next phase or not. We have these go no go points, which happens in the initial stages in the project, like pre-project. We have an idea whether we should go about this or not. You make a decision. So you have a stage gate. Then you move to the next one, which is like feasibility, where you do investigation of project. And if you think the project is feasible, you move to foundations, where you find out, but how do we do it? So you do planning. Once we are done with these 3 phases, which are more sequential like waterfall, we start working on the project requirement analysis, design, development, testing, which is where the product is actually developed and evolved. Now, that phase is exploration and engineering. So, if you map it to the software part, then you will see like analysis, design, development, testing, all of them have been kind of put together in exploration and engineering, while the diagram here shows them two different things. In real life, when you start using agile, most projects will use them together. So you will have exploration and engineering being fitted together to develop the product. So it's not like first I do analysis, then you do design, then you do development. So it's not like upfront everything. It's a little bit of everything. Some analysis, some design, some development. So you do quick development. And once you have the product ready, you go to deployment, which is where You make your release notes, you hand it over to support, you make some documentation, you learn lessons, and put the product to live or ship the product. Finally, post project is where you look at how the project contributed to the organization objectives, whether you were successful in solving the business problem and need, and the benefits realized by the project. As you see, it's like a hybrid model, some waterfall, some agile. All right. Now, couple of things. As you see the colors here, the orange color is for the business people. So initially, the project is looked from the business point of view, whether they want the project, what is their problem, whether the solution will help them. Apart from that, the funding, timelines, and benefits. Then you see the management part as well as the technical part in exploration and engineering, and you have the deployment, after which project goes live. You also see too many arrows in here. What it means is if you are doing the product in certain releases, so you start with the first release. When you go to deployment, and if you already have the requirements for the next release, from deployment you move to exploration and again start building the next set of release, and again you come to exploration and work on release 3 and so on. But if you are working in a customer supplier environment and you have contracts for developing different products, so post deployment, you again visit foundation and you make a plan for the next product. And then you keep going like that. Once all the deployment is over, in such cases, you look at the benefits assessment to see how the project helped. Now we need to look at each process. If you have got the book, then there is a chapter which talks about processes here, and each process talks about the objective, purpose, and the work that needs to be done. And each process tells which product will be created and also suggests the composition or the contents of that product. Like if you have to write a business case, what you should write in a business case, who should write it, who should review it, and who should approve it. Or if you have to create, for example, a delivery plan, then how it should look like, who should do it, and who should review and approve it, right? So quickly about the products, these are like set of information. Like I said, don't look at them as documents. Yeah, don't look at them as Excel sheet and Word documents, because you might have a project where you might not create all of them as physical documents. Some of them might be verbal information, some of them could be minutes of meetings, some of them could be emails, some of them could be verbal discussions, and some of them could be documents in itself. So you have to look at, for example, what is the way to kind of retain the information or share the information. Usually when there are many teams involved and they sit at different location and you have customers and suppliers, it is recommended that you follow a proper structured approach to retain knowledge and keep everyone together. So you have flexibility and you have to tailor it according to your project needs. Appendix C in the manual gives you a good overview of all the products and their contents. The first phase is the pre-project phase, where the objectives of the projects are identified and defined. So this is where the business problem or a need is identified. We also identify the appropriate authorities to oversee the funding and the requirements for the project. So you have to identify where the sponsor comes from and who becomes the visionary. You also make sure that the project is in line with the organization's business strategy, and you make a plan for how the next phase, that is feasibility, will take place. What work will be done by whom, and when all the feasibility phase work will be completed. Usually this will be a very short kind of a phase, maybe a day or two, depending upon the size and complexity of project. Let me give you one example of this. Like we have had this support system in the company, insurance company in UK, and we had this quarterly review of how the support is taking place, what compliments or comments or kind of complaints come from stakeholders. We also look at the new requirements and functionality that does not exist in the system. So every quarter, the business stakeholders would review the system and how it is being supported and what needs to be done in the next quarter. So if you have some problems, for example, if I see like uh, a problem keeps coming on the system, like the stakeholders are requesting to fix some problem every now and then. So business asks me, well, okay, in the last quarter you spent almost about 1 man month in resolving this service request. What is this about? And can we find a permanent solution about this? So you have a problem, and then you find a solution for that. Sometimes it is like, as I said, the sales staff in UK, they used to have these forms, customer forms, and at the city centers every weekend they used to find new customers and fill up the form and send it to the office. What the problem we were facing was like uh, the data would take about 2 weeks, 3 weeks to arrive in our finance systems, and so we could not do the billing and we could not serve the customer. This was actually affecting our customers, and they were a little unhappy, and we lost a lot of customers due to that. So a problem statement was given to me that said, well, we are having a lot of problem with our customers because they cannot be served until they are seen in our system, and it takes 3 weeks to see them in our system. This has resulted in losing 10% of customers and a certain amount of revenue. Is there anything you can do about it? Now that is what you can call a pre-project phase is about. So is there anything you can do about it triggers my feasibility, and the IT manager probably can become a supplier who delivers the solution, and the stakeholders like marketing and sales people, they become my users. So they are my customers who want the solution, so they tell me the problem, and my manager, the IT systems manager, becomes the supplier who provides the solution. But somebody has to pay for all this, because now we are going to look at the solution. So we need to look at the CEO or some business finance manager or director level person to become a sponsor who agrees to pay for all this work. So pre-project is actually identifying the problem and the business objectives, and identifying who will pay for the project and who will provide the problem statement and requirements. When you identify all this high level information, either you can put them in the contract, or you can call it terms of reference, or it could be, in my case, was only an email that comes to me, can you find a solution to this? But these provides you a terms. Maybe sometimes they can say, we need the solution as long as it doesn't go beyond 10,000 pounds, or it doesn't go beyond 3 months, or maybe they can provide some kind of constraints on affordability, costs, timelines, and so on. So they might provide you the terms at which they want the solution. In Agile, it is called as terms of reference, and it is the first business product created during pre-project. Terms of reference is a very common word used across the world. It's basically the trigger for the project. And what do you write in that? You usually write things like business problem or the business needs, uh, any identified solution if you already have in mind, or you elaborate a little bit on the idea. You provide any constraints you have, like time or budget constraints. You might want to put the name of the sponsor, like who's funding the project and who is going to oversee the requirements, like the owner basically. You call them visionary. If you have already identified a project manager, you might also find give his name. Terms of reference tells us the rules in which, or the expectations of the customer within which the solution has to be delivered. You have any such things? What's the trigger for your project? So my terms of reference was, can you do something about this problem? So we started feasibility with a one liner that says, well, can you solve our problem, because we don't get to see the data in 3 weeks. So what we do is we do a short phase wherein we identify what kind of solution will be required, and where will the resources come to develop the solution. So are these going to be internal people? So if suppose I'm doing that IT development and support, and I need say about 10 developers and testers to work on it, But I realize that most of them are already kind of assigned to some support activities or to do some other development. So am I going to borrow people from outside the company? Am I going to recruit them? Are they going to come as a consultant? Can we buy a ready-made solution? Do we need some external agencies? What type of contracts? Which technology? How do we? And if suppose it's a working solution, or if it's a production environment, then I also need to look at how do we deploy it on the production system without breaking the existing system. So you want to do some investigation, you want to do some feasibility to see will my solutioning work on the existing system and I can actually deliver it. So feasibility is about investigation time. And what do you investigate? You look at everything like make or buy analysis, or outsource or do it yourself analysis. We also look at various possible solutions, technology, platforms, resources, suppliers, vendors, doing it yourself. You also have a very first cut kind of a timelines and cost. Like in my case, I can say, well, we need to develop, but the people will be busy on other projects, so we need to recruit some consultants to either do support work or to do the development. We'll need some kind of a handheld device, but we don't have specialties inside our company, so we need to hire some company from outside who does this. Apart from that, I also find out the technology and platforms, and I give a very high level estimate. For doing this type of solutioning, you will need about a month for analysis, about a month for designing, about 2 months for development, 1 month for testing, and then 1 month for training, UAT, and deployment. So I give a very high level timelines for the project, like 6 months. If we start in June, we will be able to deploy around Christmas. It's going to cost us about 500 man days, which will translate into, let's say, 50,000 pounds. So I give very high level efforts, high level estimates on timelines, and high level estimates on cost. I also provide basically some risks in adopting Agile. If you remember, I had said you got to use that project approach questionnaire in the very beginning to determine, are you ready to start using Agile in this project? I mean, do people understand that not everything will work in the first release? We might be able to give just few functionality, but we will be able to finish in 6 months. Are they okay with that? Do we have business stakeholders around to help us discuss the functionality? Will they be able to provide us with decisions quickly, and so on? So you just look at the readiness checklist on using Agile. Feasibility phase, you also make some high level plans on, like the next one, that is the foundation. So how the foundation phase takes place, and who does planning for foundation and the resources required. At the end of feasibility, we go back to the business stakeholders again. We show them the feasibility report and the outline plan for foundations. And only when they allow us to move to the next phase, we move into foundations. So that is the foundations phase happens after you have done feasibility. So once again, it is a very sequential waterfall style, uh, kind of one after another types. First, we do pre-project to determine the problem or to understand the problem, and kind of define the terms of reference. Then once it is understood by all stakeholders and they allow us to go to feasibility to investigate further that problem and whether a solutioning is possible. So once we see is it possible to solve this problem, and whether we are using in-house outside teams, and whether the funding is possible and the high level business objectives, then we go into foundation. So pre-project means why or what problem we have. Feasibility is can we solve it, and foundation is how we solve it. So foundation phase, as the name suggests, lays firm foundations for business, solution, and management. Remember, we have three different types of teams: the business teams whose interest is requirements and the funding, the solutions team whose interest is solving that business problem by offering the technical solution, and the management that bridges these two. So they understand the cost, they plan the timelines, resources, reporting, controls, and governance mechanisms. During foundations, the project manager, with the help of others, makes a plan, a very high level plan. You can call roadmap on how the project will be delivered. It does not go into the details of activities, efforts, and all that, but it shows how many releases we can have for this product, when these releases will happen, how many time boxes we have, what is the size of each time box, what are the requirements we have, what's the priorities of the requirement. But once again, when we define the requirements, we do not go to the details of the functionality of each requirement. Like I said, if payments is a functionality, we understand we need payments, we need invoices for paid amounts, we need to see how many payments are done, we need to say what payments are outstanding, we need to show a screen where the payments will be processed, we need a contract with a third party vendor who provides payments integration. So you can understand, you can just make out the requirements and stories, and you can also make their priorities, but you don't go to the detail of how the screen will look like, how the payment options will be provided, where will be the button, fonts, look and feel and all. You just make high level stories, so that when you start a particular time box, and if the story has to be delivered within that time box, you do just in time detailing, so you do enough design upfront. Apart from that, you also need to understand some business foundations like requirements, their priorities, and the business case for the project. Remember, all of this is undertaken to help the business. Business wants to understand what is the problem, what is the solution, cost and timelines for solution, and benefits if the solution is delivered. And then the business wants to see the cost versus benefit to decide if the project should be done, if the investment is worthwhile. So foundation phase does all these three things. Make sure we have a sound business foundation to decide to invest in this project. We have good enough benefits of doing the project, and we are going to measure, monitor the project based on the business case. You also make sure, as part of business foundation, requirements are understood and their priorities. As part of management foundation, you make a high level delivery plan of costs and timelines, and you also make a high level plan about how the project will be, how the project governance will be done, how the control will be done, what communications will take place, which reports will be provided, how the stakeholders will be kept in loop, how escalations will be done. So overall management mechanisms. And finally, the solution foundations that talks about overall design, infrastructure, solutioning, standards to be followed, any best practices to be used on solutioning, and so on. You have your high level technical architecture, solution architecture, database architecture, could be done as part of foundation, but we need to keep it very high level, enough design upfront. So let's just look at business objectives once again. Baseline high level requirements. This is done by involving the business visionary. Here we prioritize the business need and we make a business case. Business case tells us the investment is worthwhile. We have solution objectives where we understand the business processes that are to be supported. We also identify the strategies for deployment, like if your system is already live and is being used in production, like 24 by 7 systems. Now if you have a SLA of 24 by 7 systems, then how do you basically put on your new development on that? What kind of strategies are you going to use? For example, if they do road a new flyover, let's say in Mumbai, if they are constructing a new metro rails or flyovers, then they have to look at, well, people will be using the roads anyway. I mean, there will be a lot of traffic during the day till late nights. How are you going to do the construction work in such cases? How you go and do that? That is basically another one that you have to think about. Apart from that, you have to look at the infrastructure, like server sizing, type of infrastructure networks that you might require. Apart from that, technical standards, and how you are going to make sure the quality is achieved, like what kind of reviews and testings you are going to do to make sure your product is fit for purpose. The detailed management objectives involve the governance of project, the development life cycle, the number of time boxes, the size you use for time boxes, and you also identify risks and how they will be managed. The communication, the reporting requirements, and the baseline schedule for the project. That's for the project manager. And the outputs of foundations, the outputs include the business foundations, which is the vision and the business case. The prioritized requirements list, which is basically showing high level requirements along with their business value. The management foundations, that shows the delivery plan, that is the number of time boxes, size, schedule, and a tentative release kind of a schedule. And delivery control pack are like empty documents or Excel sheet or Word document like risk log. So whenever you find a risk, you enter them in the risk log and what you are doing about it and the current status of each risk. You also have periodic reports to go to the stakeholders on cost used or the status reports on the project. If any change request comes, how do you handle those change requests? The issues log, the burn down and burn up charts. We will see burn down and burn up charts, but for now, let's understand. They basically tell uh, how much work has been completed and how much work is remaining, or how much work is remaining and how much efforts are remaining. So, how much efforts are remaining and how much work is to be completed within those efforts. The solutioning foundations, which is usually done by the technical architect coordinator, will look at the business areas to be addressed, the system architecture, the development approach, and any prototype that you might have created. Now, these words are very specific to a turn. However, if you adopt Agile in your company, it is advised that you might use your own vocabulary and your own document names or artifact names. Yeah. Now, that's basically foundation. We can't move to exploration until all these foundations are reviewed and approved and baselined by the stakeholders. And then when they approve, we start the execution. The execution is done as part of exploration and engineering phase. So before we move to exploration and engineering, quickly, is there any question